Are you curious to know what dinners were popular back in the 1970s that deserve to be back on the dinner table? Let's take a look at the meals which were once a hit but are now rarely offered. Are you wondering what people were eating in the 1970s for dinner? A time where healthy foods weren't at the forefront but convenience was. The 1970s food gives us an insight into how people were living. As more women started to work, there was a greater need for fast, convenient meals. Magical recipes were put together that gave the illusion of upscale culinary meals, but were actually pretty simple to make. While there may be a few people that still hold on to these old dinner recipes, they aren't a staple of American cuisine any longer. Chicken cordon bleu. Chicken cordon bleu is a French dish that was adopted into the US during the 1970s. Cordon bleu translates to blue ribbon, which represented a first-place prize. It certainly did win the hearts of American families and was a major trend for a few years. It was comprised of breaded chicken stuffed with cheese and ham. It was easy enough to make, flattening a chicken breast and then slicing it in half so you could stuff it with the ham and cheese. Toothpicks were used to keep the ham and cheese in place as you breaded the outside of the chicken. You would then roll the chicken through an egg mixture and then into breadcrumbs to make the crispy breaded exterior. Once this was complete, you would bake it in the oven. For those who had very little time, there were pre-made frozen cordon bleu options, so all you had to do was put them on a pan while still frozen and cook them accordingly. The cordon bleu was made so popular because of the increased demand for tasty, convenient foods. It was easy to maintain a good texture and taste even when frozen and then reheated. Veal Parmigiana. When it wasn't offensive to eat veal, the veal Parmigiana was introduced. It was an Italian Americana dish that was created during the 1970s and featured breaded veal covered in tomato sauce and melted cheese. The veal was put on top of a bed of pasta. This was a dish created by Italians living in the US and was a great adaptation to Italian food from the homeland. Italian households swapped out the original ingredient of eggplant with veal and could be found in Italian restaurants all over. It was made by breading veal and then smothering it with marinara sauce. Covered in mozzarella, it was then put into an oven so the cheese could melt into a golden brown. It was then accompanied by pasta and marinara sauce. Steak Diane. Steak Diane was a twist with steak that was mothered in cognac sauce. In restaurants, it was often set on fire right at the table, making it a classy, exciting dish to order. The dish was named after the Roman goddess Diana. To make this culinary delight, you would first fry the beef tenderloin in a pan and then create a sauce with a base of the juices from the pan. You would add cognac, butter, mustard, and Worcestershire sauce to the juices, creating the signature sauce that made this dish so special. By adding a flambé, it would dramatically add to the flavors of the sauce, which was also a theatrical presentation that everyone loved. It was a signature dish in famous New York restaurants during the 1970s for its dramatic presentation and exciting flavors. Shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is a hearty casserole made from ground meat, vegetables, and a potato topping. It originated in the UK, where the meat was always ground lamb, hence the name shepherd's pie. If you used ground beef, it was cottage pie. To make shepherd's pie, you would sauté the ground lamb with onions, peas, and carrots. You would then add gravy so it wouldn't dry out when cooked. It would be added into a casserole dish with a creamy layer of mashed potatoes added on top. It would then be cooked in the oven until the potatoes were a golden brown. Shepherd's pie could be found in diners all over the country, and it was easy to make at home as well. Crab Louis. In the west coast of the US, fresh crab was abundant and crab louis became an established seafood salad. The salad includes Dungeness crab, hard-boiled eggs, asparagus, tomatoes, and a creamy mayonnaise dressing with chili sauce and spices added. The San Francisco Chronicle named it the King of Salads in 1914. It became a posh meal at high-end restaurants during the 1920s and was still a part of a culinary restaurant experience up until the 1960s. Duck à l'orange. Another culinary dish during the 1970s was duck à l'orange, which was introduced in the US from the French cuisine. It paired a roasted duck with the exciting taste of an orange sauce. The dish dates back to the early 1900s and was enjoyed by wealthy French aristocrats. The duck would have a crispy exterior, roasted to perfection. The sauce was a reduction that included orange juice, a stock, and Grand Marnier. It was a high-end dining meal of the 1970s that simply isn't seen anymore in the American culture. Chicken divin. Chicken divin is a delicious meal with breaded chicken that's smothered in a cream sauce with broccoli. It is usually served with rice, mashed potatoes, or biscuits. The ultimate in comfort foods, this dish originated in Paris and was showcased in New York City, making it a popular luxury meal. It was initially created to showcase a chef's cooking of fine French cuisine. To prepare, you would add broccoli and cooked chicken into a baking dish and pour over the signature cream sauce. It could then be baked until the top was golden and bubbly. Veal marsala. This is another dish that was inspired by the Italian communities of the US. It was made with veal and covered in marsala wine with mushrooms and parsley. The veal cutlets would be simmered in the signature marsala wine sauce needed for this luxurious dish. The dish originated in Sicily, which is where marsala wine comes from, and became popular during the 1950s in America. The cooking method involved lightly breading of the veal cutlets and then pan-frying them in butter. The pan is then deglazed with the marsala wine where mushrooms and onions are then added. The veal cutlets are submerged in the sauce for a very savory meal. Salmon kulibiak. Salmon kulibiak was initially a Russian dish that was then picked up by the French. It made its way to the US where it was enjoyed at high-end restaurants. It involved seasoning a salmon fillet on cooked rice and mushrooms, where it's then enclosed into a puffy pastry and cooked together. European royalty would have this dish in their banquets and was mentioned in many Russian novels. It was adopted into the French cuisine in the 1900s, accompanied by vegetables or a light salad. The blend of ingredients gives this meal a robust taste while still being light. Turkey tetrazzini. Turkey tetrazzini was a dish that was often made during cold months, especially after Thanksgiving or Christmas dinners when there was leftover turkey. It was creamy and comforting, consisting of turkey, mushrooms, and Parmesan cheese. It was created in honor of the famous Italian opera singer Luisa Tetrazzini and was believed to be created in San Francisco. The creamy sauce was made from butter, flour, milk, and chicken broth, which was then mixed into pasta and put into a casserole dish. The finishing touch was a Parmesan sprinkle on top before it was all baked together until golden brown. Ham steak with pineapple. Ham steak with pineapple was a sweet and sour dish, which was all the rage during the 1960s and 1970s. It was simple, but had a sophisticated, different taste and was incredibly easy to make with very few ingredients. You would grill the ham steak until it had browned and putting a pineapple ring on top, which was also grilled. The sides would often include mashed potatoes and green beans and was a simple dinner that everyone could enjoy. Sole meunière. During the 1960s and 1970s, there was a major surge of interest in French foods. One of the dishes that was a big hit in the US was sole meunière. Tender fillets of fish would be lightly dusted with flour and then sautéed in butter with a lemon spritz. It was a simple dish that relied on quality ingredients in cooking it just right. The word meunière is a technique that is used to prepare the dish to perfection. It was Julia Child who put sole meunière on the map, heavily endorsing it in her cooking show. Fish fillets are sautéed until golden brown and then drizzled with a sauce made from lemon, butter, and parsley. If you enjoyed this Back in Time video, please check out our other videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really helps out our channel.